You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. Okay, greetings everyone. Greetings and welcome. I'm so sorry about the delay. Not just even the delay. I think the issue was, the time switching. So I thought we on time, but I just realized that we're almost 1 hour according to the flyer. So I want to welcome all of you, and it's a nice time being here. It's a nice thing being here. There's been a lot to celebrate. We talked about it in the beginning as before we went on a short break here on Pan-African Daily, that we have to pull back, reassess our work. But now it's time to celebrate. It's time for Thanksgiving. So in the studio with me here today, I have Professor Joomay, who is going to give us a happy Africa Union Day history. This is the beginning of the African Day week, as you know, 2025. This is the 23rd of May, but of course the official celebration is the 25th of May. So the purpose of this conversation is for us to look at where we have been with the African Union and where we are going to. What has brought us to this Pan-African unity? What has brought us to the organization of the African unity? Who did that? Why did they do it? And what were some of the declarations they made during the organization of the African unity in 1963? Who were the visionaries, and who were there on that very day? What did they sign? What was the vision for the new Africa? So please join me as you are joining this show. Thank you for all of you that are joining. Make sure that you are sharing, you're liking, you're inviting one another. It's been a long time that we've not been here. Not very long. Come on, not so very long, but it's been a while though. So I know a lot of our persons, viewers are still confused. Are we truly live, or is another kind of an AI? No, we are live. We are live. And of course, you do know that we're planning the 25th anniversary of International Africa Festival in Germany to begin. Omoa is just coming next weekend, right? So we've been working in the background, trying to put the spirit of Pan-Africanism, try to bring our people again together after, celebrating the African culture for 25 years. So please welcome with us in our studio, Professor Joomay. But before we get to bring Professor Joomay in the studio, I just want to check who is here on the chat so I can give you a shout out, because it's really been long. Thank you. The king of Barbuda, of Antigua Barbuda, is right here in the house. The king of a Caribbean, who is also going to join us in Tübingen. He will be representing the SID region, right, of Africa, as you all know. I don't know. I think my internet is tripping. Is it lacking behind? Do not wonder. It's just happening here in these days in Germany, Europe. It's not just these days. For the past couple of weeks, we've been having challenges, with internet, with so many other things that are going on. So please bear with me, but I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. Please, if everything is okay, just drop a statement or a text in the comment section. If you can see me, you can hear me. Make sure you drop a comment in the section. I want to see all of you, and I see a lot of you are watching, but I cannot see you on the chat. So I guess there's kind of a delay out there. Anyways, like I said, today is the day for celebration, and I'm bringing in now Professor Joomay right here on the show. Professor Joomay, welcome. And you are the king of Africa Union when it comes to history, when it comes to the founding, when it comes to everything that has to do with celebration. And we are beginning to celebrate the organization of the African Unity that was founded in 1963, of course, otherwise known now as the Africa Union. And we want to share some aspirations with you. We want you to bring us back to the point where we left it. We want you to tell us the inspiration, what actually lead us to gather in Addis Ababa and to create this amazing powerhouse, the engine of the Africa today. So yes, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing, Professor? Just want to get your
I
take.
am greetings, Dr. Tata. As always, it's a joy and an honor to be here with you, talking about the Africa we want. Because the Africa we want is a united, strong Africa, which will be really visible on the world geopolitical map and will be able to sway the rest of the world
Yes.
towards the concept of Ubuntu in regard to
Mm.
the interaction between human beings. As I say to people, Dr. Tata, Africa today, the Homo sapiens is in danger. It's really in danger because I mean, anyone who is looking at environment, what is being done to the environment, the ozone layer being kind of, really like broken, you know, and we can't survive without that ozone layer. You will know that the Homo sapien, because of recklessness of profit seekers, is in danger. But African civilization, culture, African, if you want, customs, African, mores are not based on greediness of the person, but more like communal. What exactly is going to be the impact of what I'm doing on us as a community? Is derived from Ubuntu. I am because you are, and you are because I am. But unless we do have the power, political power, to drag the Homo sapiens back towards more humanism, which is the bedrock of African culture, well, we won't be able to do that. So African unity is of an urgency today. And talking about the Organization of African Union, which was mutated into the African Union in 2000 in Tome, in Logo, of course, after the 1999 conference at Sirte in Libya. Talking about that is important, really, really important. But thank you very much, everyone who is watching. Let's have a conversation. I am really much better sometimes with question when I have questions than when it's just like talking, 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 talking. Okay? Because I would like to be pragmatic. I like to address what people have in their mind where they need clarity, where I could help them get clarity more than just thinking that I know exactly where people need clarity and just rumbling, rumbling, and rumbling non-stop. I'm not that kind of speaker. I like the interaction with and this is why I love coming to your show, Dr. Tata, because you do like a Socrates myetic, they call it, like you force my brain, like you force my brain to go back and dig deep, and then bring things that it didn't think that it knew, you know. Socrates, like, myetic is about that, challenging people, and getting them to actually sometimes see their limit if they are not too egotistic, but also kind of like be more in contact with what they really know and that they don't really know. So thank you very much for having me here for this opportunity. Shout out to everyone.
Shout out to everyone. Yes, I just want to get back into the chat. I see a sister Titia saying a Sunday in Africa alone or all over the world is Africa Day being celebrated on the 23rd because of course the official day is a Sunday. Sister, just chill here. That's the reason why we're warming up this show. We're starting today. Professor Joomay is going to lecture us or tell us a brief history about it, but he's actually going to tell us when they pen down the signatures. Because before we celebrate, there must have been a gathering, there must have been a declaration. So most of the time, we only celebrate the day, but we have to go back to the history to how we come to celebrating on that day. So of course,
Absolutely.
officially
Absolutely.
it is May 25th. But we are starting today because we all know that they traveled from the different parts of the continent today. They left today on the 23rd and they traveled to Addis Ababa, arrived tomorrow, held the meeting, did the signatures, and then officially declare on the 25th. So we want to start this journey to travel with them today. So we are
Absolutely.
starting on the continent, like Professor is saying, our Homo sapiens, it means the Ubuntu people, the people of Africa, the Africans are in danger, our species. But we're going to handle that topic some other time. We want to go to the reason why our visionaries, Pan Africanists, thought it was necessary to have a union that would unite the whole of Africa after the partition of what we have today as Africa. So, the Africa we want is the
Absolutely.
organization of the African Union that was birthed today. So, let us travel with our visionaries and our ancestors, most of them, today to Addis Ababa. We're going to land tomorrow, so we're still going to continue the conversation tomorrow. And on Sunday, we're officially going to also celebrate like they did. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Sister Teacher. Becky
Absolutely.
Jensen, thanks for being here, and all of you that are actually watching me, whether on Facebook or on YouTube. Hey, big up to us. We are traveling. We're taking the train now. Whether it's Dr. Kwame Nkrumah living from Ghana today, or Sekou Touré, and all of them that met there, whether any place that they were living at this time to travel to Addis Ababa. So we want to start that journey of the Africa Day 2025 with them. So good. Coming
Absolutely.
back to you in studio, Professor Jumai, you said, on Pan African Daily, we provoke the minds. And exactly that is what makes Pan African Daily absolutely unique. And that is why I also made Pan African Daily the first ever that launched these conversations in 2020 after COVID, seeking for African solutions by Africans to their challenges. So, yes, it was a gift. It is a gift. Pan African Daily was a gift. It was not just, trying to create content or try to share something. I mean, it was a gift for the people, and we are on it, on that gift. So, over to you.
Absolutely.
How, what happened? Do you actually think, like I said, that they left today and would gather in Addis Ababa? How can you anticipate the scenario that was going on as they were leaving from their different countries? What is it that they were coming? The anxiety, the enthusiasm. I can imagine, just imagining Dr. Osajivo Kwame Nkrumah packing his things and being so excited to be in Addis Ababa tomorrow. So, what do you think could have been their state of mind in their different countries as they prepare to embark?
Absolutely. I mean, Eddie, if you could go back to, let's say, May 20th, 1963, when these
Mhm,
delegations are coming to Addis Ababa, you know, delegations that were not in terms of, even for the independence issue, were not uniform in how, you know, independence should be accelerated for African countries,
mhm,
or were not at all uniform in terms of unity. We are unity around what? What form of unity? For example, you know, uh, you had also people who has just tasted power, you know, and they came there in the assumption, because of they heard Kwame Nkrumah. that he want to take that power away from them, and then create this he was a megalomaniac, sort of kind of someone who is hungry for power, and that's the context in which, and also the president of Togo being assassinated, you know. And at that time, they were accusing Kwame Nkrumah of being the one who has him assassinated, when in fact
Mm.
it was a completely different story. Even at the meeting, the president of Cameroon, Ahmadi Ahijo, was delegated by these people to say that it's Kwame Nkrumah who got, the president of Togo assassinated, when in fact it was the French, with the help of the Americans at that time, you know. So it's in this tense atmosphere that they come. So yes, it's good to celebrate the 25th, but it's also good to experience. We are all to like just hold our breath a little bit and think of what was going in the mind of the 33 representatives of countries who came there. You know, the Kwame Nkrumah, Modibo Keita, Milton Obote, Sekou Touré, coming with the desire of a united Africa. Uh, Haile Selassie, who called for this meeting, organized this meeting, being so fearful of a failure, calling all people and then everyone going home, nothing happened. The fear that he had, the worriness that he had, and the major diplomats who were around him in doing this. And then you have the Senghor and them, the Ufet Boigny, Awolowo, all of those in Nigeria. Everyone coming with a different opinion. Because prior to them getting into Addis Ababa, there were a few meetings that happened. Two were around the issue of independence. One is the Brazzaville group, which was constituted around Senghor, Ufot-Boigny, and them. The other one was the Casablanca group, constituted of around Mohammed V, the king of Morocco at that time, the father of Hassan II. You know, these meetings were about the Casablanca group was about especially the independence of Algeria fundamentally, but Kwame Nkrumah brought in an African unionist element when in fact it was an African independentist gathering, and this is where how he got people to sign things, for reasons that really had nothing to do with unionism. We will see later, that they didn't vote for him. On the other hand, you have the Brazzaville group, which was under the control of France, where yes, independent, but we don't rush it. We don't need to rush independence. Even for example, someone like Leomba went to beg De Gaulle, Lord, please don't give us independence right now. This is not good. It's not good for us. And he begged De Gaulle. De Gaulle said, no, you have to take independence. Yeah. So those are the kind of, and then you have the Monrovia group. See, Monrovia, there has been a few meetings in Liberia. The first one, Kwame Nkrumah was there, but it ended up being really more like an economic form of unionism, a confederalism, like what happened with. They are actually the one who won at Addis Ababa, because this is the
Mm-hmm.
group, that won in Addis Ababa. So the negotiations were tense. There was a lot of subjectivism between these heads of state, for many different reasons, like I just have mentioned, a very few of them. And it started, and at the end, let's say, if you were in Addis Ababa on the 23rd in the morning, you would not believe that there will be unity. You will
Mm.
believe that everyone will go home, because nothing was really settled. Nothing. It was only in the middle of the night, that finally, after a lot of cudgeling by Haile Selassie and his diplomats, that finally people came in mass to sign. It's at 1 a.m. on the
Ah.
25th that the signatures were completed, finally. And then the morning of the 25th, that they could declare that they created the Organization of Africa. But Everyone knows that Kwame Nkrumah was not happy with the outcome at all. At all, he actually tried to leave, but Haile Selassie asked Sekou Touré to go get his brother, because this is going to be a disaster if we leave here without having anything to show to the African people. You know, so it was not, you know. If we look at that, the charter of the African Union, it was the product of a lot of negotiation, taking out a lot of things that were not really, you know, going to jeopardize, quote unquote, you know, some of these heads, the majority of the heads of state staying in power. The only one that were ready to do so were Kwame Nkrumah, of course, Milton Obote of Uganda, Sekou Touré of Guinea, and Modibo Keita of Mali. Everybody else was. Ali Selassie, we don't know exactly what was his position, really, if he wanted to surrender, but I don't think that he was ready for that. My opinion, personal opinion. So
Hmm.
it's good to clarify that here, many people, many academics actually, are confused about the Casablanca group. Casablanca was for independence, it the fundamental thing. Laos was represented in Casablanca, Laos, So the Casablanca group was really for how to accelerate the independence of Algeria. Fundamentally, that was what it is, and that's why the uh, uh, the heads of states of the Maghreb, the Mashrek, accepted the resolution that Kwame Nkrumah put, but at Addis Ababa they voted against him, all of them. None, except the two who came with him, Sekou Touré and Modibo Keita.
So this is quite interesting because why we are going into this history is because when you look at this scenario on the continent of Africa, and you look at even the Pan-Africanism, the spirit of Pan-Africanism that we're building, there's still resistance within us. There is still resilience. Though we are looking for a one union African state or one Africa or a Pan-African federal African state, or what we call today the United States of Africa, there is still resistance within. So when we go back to this history, we begin to look at even the resistance that that was faced in creating the organization of the African Unity to liberate the then occupation of Africa at that time in 1963. Like we're saying, most of the countries are just barely 60 years or at least 65 years. So, do you want to relate it to that? Like, is it natural even after the 60, 65 years of independence? We have seen, we have realized the importance and the need for the continent to come under one umbrella so that they can be able to speak with one voice in terms of development, in terms of policies, in terms of whatever agenda, until
Absolutely.
the AU came up with the Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So, what is it that you think? Is it the mindset, the colonial mindset? What is it that you think, even regardless of this independence that they fought, regardless of all what we are seeing, but even right now, that countries or leaders that are still advocating for this independence or for this Pan-Africanism are still facing a lot of, resistance from within, not from without.
Well, Susan, Doctor, I think that this is why I think that it's need for us to differentiate a few concepts. Okay,
Mhm.
Kwame Nkrumah, you know, I wouldn't want to say mistake, was mistaken in believing that Pan Africanism and African Unionism are the same. You know,
Mhm.
they are not. You can be a Pan Africanist without being an African Unionist.
True.
You know,
Agreed.
the reality is that people like, let's say, Nyerere or Senghor, Ufet all of these people were Pan-Africanists because Pan-Africanism is about the dignity of black people in a way. But there is a difference between Pan-Africanism and African Unionism, which is indeed something that was brought into the political realm by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey is the real father of African unionism. Yes, there has been other West African Union and all of that stuff, but in terms of global Africa, Africa on the continent and beyond, to unite and form an empire on which the sun will never set. That's a Marcus Garvey contribution. So Garveyism is different from Pan-Africanism. Garveyism is about African unity for the restoration of our sovereignty and the reparation of our dignity. That's what African unionism is. Pan-Africanism is about solidarity between black people, not white, black people, yes, for the restoration, of course, of their dignity and unity. And this unity is not necessarily going to be political. If you're talking about Pan-African, it could be cultural, it could be economical, it could be political. So, it's different. What Marcus Garvey called for hailed the United States of Africa, and it was very clear. So Kwame Nkrumah started his Pan-Africanist, or his, as, if you want, a Garveyite. And it's from there, as an African unionist, it's from there that he come into Pan-Africanism, and then, I think that mistaken somewhere in thinking that Pan-Africanism and African unionism are the same, So that's what is, make a lot of people, confused and also disappointed about Pan-Africanism, The main goal of Pan-Africanism is really a solidarity between black people. It's an creation of this fake race, which is a black race, which is not biological. It's a political race created solely for the purpose of exploitation of black people, And Pan-African, like let's say Bob Marley says, until the color of a man's skin is no more significant than the color of his eyes, me fight. Meaning like I'm going to be a Pan-Africanist. That's the definition. As long as you're a black man, you're an African. The word African in Pan-Africanism is what Peter Tosh is talking about, African. He's not talking about, African of the soil, which are Arabs or white South Africans. It's different, So the combat is a different one. Even though the combat of African unionism serves Pan-Africanism, it is not Pan-Africanism. So many people who accuse Senghor, accuse others of not being Pan-Africanists because they are mistaken. They are mistaken. Yes, Senghor was a local unionist because he was instrumental in the federation of Mali Federation, but at the same time he was a Pan-African because of the negritude, Césaire and them, and so on and so forth. So Addis Ababa was an African unionist gathering. There were two groups that were confronted in Addis Ababa. One was the group of Kwame Nkrumah. The other one was the group of the Senghor and Ufwetwanyi. One was an Awolowo of Nigeria. One was for political unity now, and they were a minority. The other one was political cooperation now, confederation. And that's what, had the day. People like Nasser, people like Bourguiba, people like Mohamed Singh, who were indeed at the Casablanca meeting, none of them voted for unity. Even Ben Bella, for example. So that's what the confusion between Pan-Africanism and African unionism is one reason. The other thing also, Dr. Tata, is that the conditions were not there for what Kwame Nkrumah wanted. The condition was not there at all. Number three is that even if we had a union from that way, it would have been a wrong union. Let me just repeat that. If we had a union government in 1963, it would have been the wrong union, because the people of Africa, who are normally the owners of sovereignty, were not involved in that discourse, in that discussion.
Mm.
You know, and you will have a union that will not have a legitimacy in the eyes of the people. So countries like Nigeria that are powerful, they could easily destroy the union. But when it comes from the people, from the buy, and has legitimacy from them, it would have been indeed sorry. The same thing than Gaddafi union government. Those were wrong way of going about it. A union must be the will of the people, not the will of some leaders, fundamentally. But coming back to Addis Ababa, they came there all as, some Pan-Africanists, Kuma and others, and so on and so forth. But, not all as African Unionists, at least not the type of union that Kwame Nkrumah wanted. So that was the reason why all the debate, the discussion, the reluctances, because they did not have the same understanding of union, of what kind of union they want. They were all unionists in a way, but some were only. Kwame Nkrumah, the minor and in a tiny minority, was actually for political union. The other one
Mhm.
was economic more than political union.
Mhm. But Professor Joomay, if you look at the state of Africa at that time,
Hmm.
it would have been impossible to take people along with you because the union was for the purpose of the liberation of the continent and, from the colonialists into the independence or total independence of Africa. I mean, I think like in that kind of a leadership position, I might be of a different opinion to think that what is it that they would have done at that time? Because it would have been, it's difficult to, first of all, convince the people that this is what we are supposed to do. Because I think in some kind of leadership, the visionaries, they just take the people with, because of course they were the ones making the decision. And to, first of all, understand, like you truly said, what kind of a structure do we even want? Is it a political Pan-African structure? Is it an African union, unionist, like you said, where the power or the decision for us to become one again, or it comes from the people? I think I still have a little bit of difficulty to understand when you said it would not have worked in the format that they use it. So, but I look at the time, giving that particular moment, and the purpose was for the liberation. Was it necessary to focus on the liberation? Like, we come together, yes, Pan-African, be in solidarity with one another, because our countries were under siege, we're hijacked by these colonialists. We have to take back our countries. So I think they did the right thing, just to even think that something could happen like that. Whatever the format is, what we are seeing today. I'm sorry, from that time to now that we have the Africa Union, we have seen the transition of what is coming now to become the Africa Union and the Africa we want. Am I correct?
Well,
Taking that time and the situation
yeah,
in that.
I'm gonna return you the American experience.
Yes.
Americans got their independence. The different countries in America at that time. There was 13 countries here in America. Everyone called themselves. I'm going to my back to my country. When they have a meeting, everyone goes. What do you call it? Virginia was a country. Massachusetts was a country. New York was a country. New Jersey, Rhode Island, and all of those were countries, different countries. The Paris Declaration of 1783 is what gave them independence, really. They declared independence 1776, but, the recognition of that independence by Britain, the one that they were fighting, was in 1783.
Mhm.
Okay, 1783. In 1787, that's how many years? 4 years?
Mhm.
4 years. Actually, before 1780, yeah, beginning of 1783, they met in Annapolis and said, you know what? this kind of independence doesn't really put us on the world geopolitical map. Individually, we are going to be the laughing stock of the world because these countries are not viable. That was what, 1787. How many hundreds of years, like a century later, we are confronted with the same reality. Kwame Nkrumah knew about that because he studied here at Lincoln University, you know. But in 1783, 1787, when the people met and have a draft constitution, they said that this constitution must be ratified by the people themselves because they are the one who own the sovereignty. We cannot do this. George Washington could have just convinced some governors and then they go, but they didn't want to do it like that. They wanted a union that is indeed a union of the people, by the people, and for the people. You know, so that's why they went back, and they did in New York when they had the discussion. The most popular governor in in those countries, the governor of New York, Clinton, was 100% against unity. Rhode Island was not even represented and all of that stuff. But at the vote, after a campaign, after a discussion, you know, that governor was defeated by one vote, only one vote, you know, that New York joined the Union. What I'm trying to tell you here is that, you know, the people who understood that I need independence can understand how that independence can work for them. The same way that they explained to them and convinced them for independence, they could have indeed, you know, yes, you know, maybe the hindsight give me a much better perspective, but maybe, you know, but those same people could have understood that, yes, together, especially with the African mentality of Ubuntu, you know, the masses would have been completely, but you have to understand that the people who refuse the unity are all formatted in the European conception. All of them, you know, they were, you know, European formation, not the African people. If unity was talked to the African people and the proper route taken, I have the feeling that the outcome would have been completely different.
That's so correct. I do agree with you. But I'm still going to look at it from that perspective of even the cultural difference, because if we take the American War of Independence, I mean, when Britain colonized America, they had a simple structure that was easy to overthrow, I think.
Absolutely no.
Okay.
The union here was completely two different worlds coming together. A world that believed in slavery and a world that is abhorred by slavery. Countries like New Hampshire, you know, others, for example, Massachusetts, you know, they were abhorred. And the question of slavery, when it came into the discussion, they said, let's pray God to give us a light of what to do. You know what they did? They finally said, let us not discuss this now. Let's put it for 20 years from now. Let's unite and then come back to that question 20 years from now. They were completely culturally different. Absolutely no. You know,
So you want to say what you're trying to say, Professor Joomay, is like Africa was already in that spirit of Ubuntu, so we didn't have that kind of a complex situation,
if they
which
had
is
gone to the people,
yes,
not the
yes,
intellectuals who are formatted in the European selfish mentality.
I do.
Fundamentally, that's what, because those people are the one who spoke for the African people about unity and
Mhm,
formatted in the selfish European mentality, they could not see the utility of unity. All they could see is their selfish interest, their
mhm,
policies, you know, all of these new things that they got, you know, this gadget, you know, that's all they could see. They could not see
mhm,
beyond that, you know.
mhm,
Yes, the Union, of course, you know, the African Organization for African Unity ended up being focused on the fight to end colonialism in Africa, and he did a great job in that. But that was not the purpose of Kwame Nkrumah, for example.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
could tell you one thing: if they were united there, huh, the Portuguese colony would have been destroyed way before 1974, because that union will have enough mass power to tell Portugal out now. You know, the
Mm.
Guinea-Bissau, the Cabral and them didn't have to die. All of those people who died in those, that union would have, Zimbabwe would have been independent. All of those are countries they could easily fight the tiny Portugal here and France and all of that stuff to get them all off. You know, so that would have accelerated the independence of the other African countries. I believe strongly. You know.
Wonderful. Yes, you are watching Pan African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata, and our guest tonight is Professor Joomay, the Secretary General of the IPC PAFM. He's going to tell you about these structures in a short while. I want to get back to my community and greet General Mosquito, Domezo Travel and Tour, and my honorable member, Dr. Cheryl Penny, who is right here with us in the chat. Sister Queen Penny, Cheryl, you're welcome to the Pan African Daily TV, your home, your family, and your community. I know it's been a while, but so our topic today is refreshing. It's trying to look at the mistakes that were made before the formation of the Africa Union. Because in 2 days we're going to be celebrating the Africa Day 2025, and I so love it because the theme of this day, Professor Joomay, that we're going to talk about the theme tomorrow. The theme of the Africa Day 2025. Please look it up before we hold this conversation tomorrow, because that is exactly what we're going through right now. If you see the geopolitical situation of the continent against the world, I can say that. I think it's right to say that the continent is at war against the whole world, like you said, and it actually starts even from the simple fact that the theme of this year's celebration was articulated with very, very, I think, bigger intentions like what we used to see in the past. I mean, if the theme says justice for Africans on the continent and reparation for Africans in the diaspora, that is Gaveism, isn't it, Professor Joomay? Anyway,
Absolutely.
we're going to come back shortly to get your opinion on your answer about that. I just want to invite this community and to share a little bit of what is going to be happening here in Germany just in a couple of 10 days today. The African diaspora is celebrating the biggest ever African Diaspora Festival, Omoa Africa Festival, which is taking place, and they're celebrating the 25th edition of this massive platform. And guess who is behind this platform? Yes, Dr. Susan Tata, speaking to you right here. So yes, let's just watch a little bit of a video. What is really operation around before we get back to studio to take you on the next question. Thank you.
From Cameroon to the world, yeah, we are gathered as one people, spreading the love for motherland, yeah. As we hail Mama Africa, we left home to feed home. We don't suffer, now we celebrating. We left home to feed home. We celebrating 25th anniversary, no. Africa, 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 Africa.
So thank you everyone. That's the spirit that is going to be shaking the whole space in Europe in just a couple of 10 days from now. From the 5th to the 8th of June, Africans worldwide would be meeting for a pilgrimage to celebrate the 25th edition of Omoa Africa Festival Tübingen in Germany, and the expectations are very high. Right here in the group with me, or in our studio here, or on the chat, I have the representation of the SIT region, the representation of the SIT region in the person of King Ian of Antigua. He's going to be representing the Caribbean and the SIT region with an information stand, but also giving a celebration speech. And of course, on this very day, we're going to officially also get a speech of the Africa Day 2025 from the powerhouse of the African Union, or a very, or from the board of the IPC to the celebration, and many, many, many others. But not only withstanding, we're going to be hosting thousands of people again to celebrate this milestone. So, all of you that are watching us, please make sure you're tagging your people in Germany, in Europe, and asking them to join us in Germany as we embark telling the stories of the past and looking forward to the future and a solution that is unbeatable. So back to you in studio. Hey, Teresa Mila, sister, you're welcome to the show. Ahmed, thank you for joining us. Thank you so very much. Yes, you're watching us from Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. Thank you so very much for being here. Cheryl is exactly, I keep saying thank you to all of you that are watching us wherever you're watching us. So we're almost rounding up this show because it's a 1 hour show. But tomorrow or every day, Pan-African Daily TV is live, except from the Africa Festival Days celebration, which we will be, putting a lot of work out there and receiving these delegations to get back live again after that. So, Professor Joomay, I asked us a question before we went for that short break. The
Yeah.
question was, the theme. If you look at the theme of Africa Day 2025, and you look at the whole geopolitical situation, do you have the feeling like the whole world, like Africa is really fighting now? Like they say, justice. We want justice for Africans on the continent, and also a reparation. So I asked, is that Gavism? Is that the spirit of Gavi when he came and said, we must, and that the African that we're talking today has nothing to do beyond our colors, but whether you're born on the continent or in the diaspora, you're African everywhere you are. You're an
It's
African.
it's a mixture of Garveyism and Pan-Africanism.
Wonderful. Go ahead. Tell us.
A mixture because you see, uh, the fight, the reclamation of reparation to the wrongs that were done to us through solidarity, through our solidarity. You know, these wrongs were done, to black people. We're not talking about, things that were done to Arabs who were part of the exploitation actually, because they should pay reparation to those Arabs too. You know, so that's Pan-Africanism. You know, reparation and and so on and so forth. Reparation of our dignity as black people, that's Pan-African. But at the same time, there is also unionism is there, because for those who know, really, you cannot have that reparation without unity. One
Mm,
country cannot go. Senegal cannot, like the African Americans cannot go, or the Latino Americans cannot go, or the Caribbean Africans cannot go and ask for reparation. And those who actually owe them reparation will not do it through their courts, you know, because they own their courts. Who is going to be, let's say, who is going to be enforcing the decision of those courts? The same people who must pay the reparation? No. Have you ever seen, let's say, a police officer condemned and being assigned to enforce or someone who, being assigned to imprisoning themselves?
hmm.
You don't see that.
No, there's just no way.
They would not imprison themselves. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
the same adventure happened with the Native Americans here in America.
Hmm.
The Supreme Court with John Marshall at that time, you know, when Andrew Jackson was the president, who is a tenacious slaverist person, you know,
Mhm.
John Marshall decided that the Indians, who lived in Georgia at that time, have the right to the land, and
Mhm.
he delivered for them, you know, telling the whites that you cannot occupy the Indian lands. But the whites, occupied because there was gold there. You know, they occupied their houses, and then and when people said to Andrew Jackson, "Wow, this is the Supreme Court decided. Well, let the Supreme Court implement or enforce their own decision, and we will see what will happen." What was the fruit? It's the trail, the famous trail of tears that you hear about Native Americans. That was indeed because the executive refused to enforce the decision of the judiciary. That will happen to African reparation. But a united African state government will tell them, look, do it now, or with our seat on the Security Council with veto power. Anything that you will bring here, we will just move it out, we'll block it. And then we could talk about reparation. Reparation is going to have to be enforced by somebody who has interest in it. And that's only a government of the people of Africa, by people of Africa, and for the African people, fundamentally, that will do. So it's you know it's important for us to differentiate African unionism, which is a Garveyite mentality. African unionism serves Pan-Africanism.
Mhm.
African unionism serves Pan-Africanism. But all African unionists, particularly, they don't all Pan-Africanists don't understand the dialectical relationship between African unionism and Pan-African. The idea of Garvey is misunderstood by many. The impact. When Garvey talked about the empire on which the sun never set, you have to include in that Melanesia, all the way into and, in order for that to happen. That's the kind of mentality. But that's a united political Africa, fundamental. And empire is a political entity. You know.
Mhm.
So
I think this is very fundamental what you're saying, but of course, Cheryl is saying, don't you think that we're going to need a lawyer in terms of this? Because if you say it has to be
we
it's
need
not
we
just a
need
political.
diplomats. We need diplomats and political power. We don't need a lawyer. We don't need a lawyer. The lawyer is only for the details on how it's going to be done after, not on what if it should be done or not. You know, not in enforcing, in making it happen or not. The lawyers
Mhm.
are for the detailed matters and the economy, the accountants and all that. That's after the power exists and tell them draft me a plan of reparation. They are involved in that. The legality comes there, but before that, it's diplomacy and power. That's it. Nothing else.
Diplomacy and power. That is the one. And you're
Yes.
hitting it really on the nail. And that's the way it should go. We need diplomacy and power. But wait a minute, Professor Joomay. When you say we need diplomacy, what is diplomacy? Because diplomacy, this for me, this one is a kind of a tricky one.
Well, American diplomacy is different than Cameroonian diplomacy. American diplomacy is different than Senegalese
Joomay,
diplomacy. Okay?
you're saying something right here.
Yeah, a diplomat who come and tell you this is it or my way or the highway is different from a diplomat. You see, your heart, your mind should allow you. You see, God doesn't like that. Yeah, of course, God, what? A diplomat who is calling on God to bring consciousness to the person that they're negotiating is not going to produce much. That's the diplomats of Senegal and Cameroon today. But the diplomat of a united African state will be, look, you do this or you are going to suffer the consequences while smiling. That's what that diplomacy we're talking about.
Absolutely. That's the reason I think when we talk about these things, we really have to break it down like what you're saying now, because exactly that's the point where we are. We already, first of all, know that the issue of language confusion, in Africa is already one of the biggest challenges that we will have to, I think if we go back to the issue of the American War of Independence and how they had to come as a federal government under one umbrella, the issue
Absolutely.
of language was not. Am I correct?
No, it was not. But today, you see, at that time, we didn't have automatic translators.
Yes.
You see, now, Dr. Stata, somebody who really is technically savvy can be listening to this program or reading it in French or in Portuguese or in Arabic right now while we're talking in English.
Hmm.
In 1783, they didn't have that. you know, it took but a couple of months to get from wherever to get to wherever in the Americas. It was a whole lot more complicated for them than it is now. Okay,
Mm, mm,
you know,
mm.
and the fundamental is that you see we already share Ubuntu. We already share Ubuntu as the basis of how a human being should be treating the other.
Mhm.
If we have the same conception of how a human being should be treating the other, then we will not have any problem coming up with how the state should be treating the human beings themselves. Because it will be
Absolutely.
only a product of our cultural perception how human interaction should happen.
Mhm.
So that there's no Sheikh Anta Diop clearly debunk that theory of the cultural issue, number one. Number two, when it comes to federal issues like unity and federal form, culture is touched very little. It is left to the local community to deal with the cultural issues. Federal government doesn't regulate cultural affairs at all,
That's true.
and
Mhm.
religious affairs. In
Mhm.
Germany, same thing and all of that. But
Mhm.
what is we have in common is that we all have a deficit of sovereignty, and we know what exactly is the reason why we have that deficit of sovereignty, and that's what we unite around. Coming back to the African Union, see, it is. I said that to Kwame Nkrumah and them. Yes, they were really in a very disadvantage. Kwame Nkrumah was in a very disadvantageous position
Mhm.
because there was not a history of really acting together to gain independence.
Mhm.
Everyone fought for their independence kind of sort of separately. You know,
True.
Different
Mhm.
from the Americans. The Americans, they formed a one army to fight for independence. With one general at the head of the army, it was Washington. So they could see clearly what are the benefits of a union. It's different from the African people.
Mhm.
It probably would have been much more difficult for Kwame Nkrumah than it was for George Washington, probably, to come to the union, that's for sure. Because there is not a history of the benefits of
Mhm.
unionism, you know.
Mhm.
That, that's why I said the hindsight gave me a much better, easy way to look at it than it gave to Kwame Nkrumah at that time. For example, the leader of the real unionist in that political unionist, because there were other form of unionists that were there. Mm.
Mhm.
So,
Professor Jamal, you're actually dropping some wisdom, and not just only wisdom, some intellectual, historical knowledge right here. And I can see our brother Ahmed from Ethiopia, who is watching you, saying, of course, there's just a lot of information that you're giving here. He doesn't think that African Union has this information, and that he is appealing or actually saying the African Union should reach out to you, because I mean, yeah, just getting into the essence of it, you could feel that, as a matter of fact, that what you're saying it relates and it resonates, and of course, that's just the ice of the cake. Um,
absolutely.
but I'm still going to come back to the point where, of course, you said Kwame Nkrumah would have had a challenge, a more bigger challenge than Washington, of course, because how many states was America at that time, and how many states was Africa partitioned into that majority? But what I
Then,
truly agree, mhm,
the American, there were 13 colonies,
yes,
13, 1 3. Okay. The African states were 33 in Addis Ababa, 33.
Yes,
And among them you had kingdoms, like Burundi, like Morocco, and all of that work. Burundi was still a kingdom at that time, you know. So, there were 33 different countries, from no, two different colonizers actually. You had the French and the British, because the Portuguese were not independent yet. So you had from two different colonizers and the Arabs, in a way also. So three different uh, uh, entities, if you want to call them, based on the language, based on the culture of the colonizer. Yeah, yeah. But, but the other thing is that too is that there was no, let me say, it's important. There was no experience of what the benefits of union is. There
absolutely.
is
I
no
agree.
experience at all. You know.
Mm,
Yes, there was the Pan-African congresses and all of that stuff, but the congresses are only for resolutions, not going to create something to fight together. Jomo Kenyatta, you know, for example, if you take his case, there was no African really lawyer who defended him much as, you know, as the Jamaican brother who defended him, who really kept him from being killed by the British, for example. Yeah, there was, and there was also the solidarity here and there. I mean, and North Africa, the ones who were really helping in the fight, let's say Egypt, Nasser, he was not a unionist at that time. If Nasser was a unionist, maybe it would have been very different, you know, because he had helped also others already gain independence. There was that solidarity. Maybe his capital of credit, and Mohammed Sen could have helped Kwame Nkrumah. But Ghana at that time, beside Guinea, who he helped, get out of the difficulty, and Guinea voted for him. Besides Guinea, Ghana had not done really much for any other African country at that time. For that person who is leading that country to believe that he owed Kwame Nkrumah something. To the contrary, Nigeria, jealous of Kwame Nkrumah's popularity, you know, did everything to destroy every single effort Kwame Nkrumah was making, for example. They see
mhm.
each other as enemies, I mean, they saw him as an enemy, not him see them as enemy. He didn't see them as enemy at all.
So what you're trying to say, and I think I do agree with it, like even now, we the urge for African unionism or the Pan-African urge for solidarity for a free or economic independent Africa and stuff is still having these issues of the past, because if we don't take the population, we don't explain, we don't teach the interest or the benefit of this liberation, a lot of people are still going to misinterpret or judge it from their own point of view or their own concept. Am I correct?
Well, yes, but if the times are different, see, the times are different. 1963, in 1963, imperialism uh, did not run its course yet. Anyone who went to school in our colonies, or newly independent countries could get a job and a house and a car and everything that you needed.
Mhm.
So the imperialist mode of production was still able to absorb all the intellectual petite bourgeoisie that is coming out of our schools and didn't even
Mm,
have enough, you know. In that case, the context in which Kwame Nkrumah was speaking to is very different today, where that imperialist mode of production, has run its course, where hundreds of thousands of young intellectuals are coming out of our universities, which have become graveyards of of dreams, in a way, So the youth, the African youth today, is indeed ready for that kind of, of checking something else. Of it is open. This is why Kwame Nkrumah and Sankara and all of them are so popular today, because the system has come to where it can no longer serve the people. Who benefits the most from it? Okay, no more jobs. That is indeed why, for example, the youth in Senegal is the one that elected President Joomay, really. And the youth in Mali is the one who gave Goita any kind of legitimacy. The youth in Burkina Faso is the one who gave Traore legitimacy, and Niger is the youth. So the young intellectual. You see, what you could compare Africa today to is Japan in 1850. Japan in 1850. For 400 years, Japan was run by the military government of the samurais. When you do a training on a samurai and you become a samurai, you have access to land and you could get rich. But that system arrived at a point where the samurai system could no longer satisfy the young samurais coming into the market for reclaiming land like the other privileges like that. So it's about 6 Japanese intellectuals who allied with these young samurais who are not finding jobs and not finding a land to overthrow the 400-year old regime and install restoration, what they call the MEYI restoration. The MEYI was a monarchy, but this monarchy was more for capitalism than it was for feudalism. But the samurai system, military, was for monarchy, for feudalism, land and stuff. So what I'm saying here is that we are at a point where African youth, the time that we are living and the time that Kwame Nkrumah was living are completely different. At the time of Kwame Nkrumah, in his speech, actually in Addis Ababa, he said the Africans are crying for unity. I kind of doubt the truthfulness of that, But today, we know the African youth is crying for unity. There is no one who could doubt that, So, contrary to what many people think, Dr. Tata, it is not an Illuminati who make revolution happen. Let me repeat that. It is not an Illuminati, someone who is smart, someone who is this, because of them revolution happen. People give Garvey much more credit than he deserved, even though he deserved a lot of credit. People give much more credit to Kwame Nkrumah than he deserved, even though he deserved a lot of credit. What Garvey and Nkrumah were able to identify is that the conditions are ripe for the change that they wanted to see happen. For Kwame Nkrumah, conditions were ripe for independence, But, he was mistaken and believed that the conditions were ripe for unity. Garvey, initially when he created the UNIA in 1914, black solidarity was not that necessary, that understood. But when the military came back from World War I, 1918, 1918, and they got discriminated, even though after dying next to whites in Europe, they realized that, I fought for liberty, now I'm being denied liberty. Those are the ones who gave Garvey the context in which he could have his assembly in New York, where there was 20,000 people. So it's context that create revolutions. It is not the individual. The merit of the individual is to read that the conditions are here and to use the context properly. The merit of Garvey was to use properly the context in creating a massive organization of black people. The condition for Kwame Nkrumah was the context in pushing for independence in Ghana, while the others were pushing for something else. So it's the context. So the context today, for unionism, African unionism, is favorable. It was not favorable at the time of Kwame Nkrumah. Even at the time of Gaddafi, because whatever, it was not as clear as that. But now, the African youth is desperate, to end neocolonialism, to end foreign domination, because they think that it's the reason why they're not getting jobs. Indeed, yeah, I agree. But it's only the reason, part of the reason. Part of the main reason is the non-viability of their countries, the vulnerability of their countries. Because today, look at the Mali, look at Burkina Faso. Even though we have government that are, or the time of Sankara when I was by him, you know, we wanted, but we could not resolve the problem of the country because of the non-viability of the country itself. This is why Garvey is on time today. What Garvey was calling for, it's really, really today that we need to apply it. You know, there is a thing that I just want to clarify here because you see, there are very lazy people out there claiming to be Garveyites, saying that Garvey has the blueprint. Garvey doesn't have the blueprint. What Garvey wrote is there is no blueprint there. The only blueprint is unity, the strategical goal of unity. You know, that Garvey, for us to restore our sovereignty, we must unite. How to do it? Garvey didn't provide us with a roadmap, and the PAFM did work on that and have created what we call the roadmap to victory. Fundamentally, yes. It's lazy to believe that everything could be found in what Garvey wrote. But Garvey didn't want to be a god. He was not a prophet. He was speaking as a man, an African. You know, we need to enhance them. We need to enhance Kwame Nkrumah. We need to enhance Sheikh Anta Diop. But we don't. These people didn't write Bible, but the laziness of the African intellectual. Oh yeah, they wrote it. The blueprint is there. That's wrong. Strategically, yes, but tactically speaking, meaning like the step to take to get there, none of them has something that is available for us that we could really use.
I think this is also one thing that I'm loving what you're saying. I think you're just on point. I want to thank all of you that are joining us. Oh my God, a lot of people are joining here. I also have some real questions. I don't think these questions we can be able to relate today. Like, I don't know, real people, real is asking any information on the Ivory Coast. I think those are all the
That's
topics
that's
that we're
the,
going
no,
to
that's
speak.
nothing. There's no coup d'etat in Ivory Coast. That's a wrong. That's
Yes, yes.
so you
Thank
could
you. I
tell
mean,
them no,
I
that
would
didn't
have
happen.
loved. Yeah. Thanks for that disclaimer because I mean, there's just a lot going on the issue, and that's the point, dear Pan African Daily TV family. You know, Pan African Daily TV, we don't pick things and just drop. We listen to professionals, African, the kind of African intellectuals that are researchers, not just researchers, have the first hand experiences, and also very important, the solution. The solution is key. Like we said, we can write all the Bibles or whatever thing they're doing. If we don't understand the metrics and to move on it, we can rally and celebrate leaders. But when we don't even understand the vision of those leaders, and I think that's one of the things. You see, everybody now is actually, like going, getting selfies. We have to be with Ibrahim Traore. We have to be, of course, we do admire that courage in that young guy, right? But one good thing that he said, Professor Joomay, and what this is what you're saying now, when he said, what if all of you Africans in your countries will start the same revolution? And so that we could get at the point where we will not be. But you see what we're doing? Everybody is running to Burkina Faso. Everybody is running. And that's the confusion. Like you're saying, we might have that, but we don't have the structure. Am I correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I will just wanna. I have been in Burkina Faso myself, physically, as a young revolutionary from 1985, March of
Yes.
1985 to May 2nd, 1987.
Mhm.
I was there. I lived the revolution like many did. You know, there's nothing new really about Ibrahim Traore. You know, the big difference here is that at this era, okay, now there are much more young Africans or Africans across the continent and the world diaspora who are ready to hear the message of sovereignty restoration than there were at the time of Thomas Sankara.
Absolute.
The sovereignist discourse of Thomas Sankara. You see,
Mhm.
Thomas Sankara had two things in his thing, in his mind. Okay, corruption, fighting against corruption, and fighting against imperialism.
Mhm.
You know, he could fight against corruption in Burkina Faso, which we were able to do, really. Uh, but in terms of imperialism, Thomas Sankara had no mean of fighting imperialism at all. You know, Ibrahim Traore could be talking about yes, sovereignty, sovereignty, but the reality is that Burkina Faso cannot get sovereignty. The whole IAS, if you put it together, can't get sovereignty. You know, people who believe that don't understand what sovereignty really means. Sovereignty, you know, is the capacity or the liberty that's independent liberty to draw your policies. But sovereignty is the wherewithal to implement those policies regardless of what the rest of the world think of them. Regardless of what the rest of the world think of them. You know, if you don't have that power and the power, the capacity to protect yourself, to make people be afraid of attacking you, for example, you know. So those are it, the IAS. Yes, like I said to many people, it could serve as a trampoline to get us to a united, to a sovereign, really African entity. You know, but let us not let's work with them to help Ibrahim Traore, to help Goita, to help our brother in Nigeria to understand that there are limited capacity of the IAS. Because I don't want people 10 years from now to be disappointed. Oh, yeah, yeah, he was saying this and no. No. They could serve as a mean to get us to a sovereign entity of African people, by African, and for African people. They could help us get that there. But
I
IS
think
alone by itself, you know, I don't
no,
see.
I think to be honest with you, Professor Joomay, we like the noise that is going on about them. Whatever would come out in that perspective, like what you're saying, is what we should already be paying attention to them. And I think it's really just going to work out with IPC or PFM uh, actually seizing this opportunity to do the right thing and to God as well. But
Mhm.
the difference is not just sitting and clapping and say, oh, he's doing the
Absolutely.
right thing,
No, no,
what
no,
we're
no, no.
doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also,
Mm.
honestly, I also just do not think that that cannot work. I think it can work, like you say, if we all
Mhm.
focus on
Absolutely.
guarding and,
Absolutely.
and and the process and managing it as well, not just
Absolutely.
hand clappers carrying flags, just
Absolutely.
dancing samba and looking to announce
Absolutely.
more, but
And
actually go to work.
Absolutely. And Dr. Tata, this is why you are a member of the steering committee, a member of the steering committee of the Grand African Unionist Forum being held in Mali, October 14 to October 18, 2026.
Absolute.
It's the desire to work with them, the IS and the others outside of the IS, because there are other presidents outside of the IS who also want unity. You know, it's the desire to work with these people to put forward African unionism, political particularly, that in you have accepted to become a member of the steering committee which will organize this grand forum of all organizations and individuals who are serious about doing something to move forward African unity.
Mhm.
We are aware of that, and Ibrahim Traore, we hope he will be there. We will make everything possible for him to be there, just like President Joomay, like President other presidents from Africa who are serious about unity. We will do everything we can. We have president, former presidents who could invite them, who could talk to them, to bring them to this forum. We want a new beginning for African unionism. You see, I want to just tell you something, okay? We want a new Addis Ababa. But an Addis Ababa, a new Addis Ababa, which is going to be in Bamako, which will indeed usher us to the birth of a united African state within less than a decade. That's why we are organizing that event, and we will make every effort possible for Ibrahim Traore, his aura, to serve that African Unionist Forum.
Absolute.
What I don't like,
And
Susan, is when people come just like, yeah, yeah, let us not deify him. Let us not deify him. Let's get him inspire us in wanting to act, not on wanting to sit down and writing on our keyboard where he's the greatest man. That's nonsense. That's a waste of time. He doesn't want that even. I believe I haven't met him yet, but I'm sure he doesn't like that.
no, he
Because
doesn't. He doesn't.
I knew Sankara, whom I knew personally, he didn't like when people are talking about him like he's a demagogue. He said, "I'm nothing. I'm just a person. You know, I am. Everyone could. Most people could do what I'm doing. You have to be just determined and be focused on what you're doing. You know."
You see, I'm sorry. I'm really going to hold up right there because this is very key what you're saying. And I want to welcome our new family members. Reparations, you're right here, sister. Thank you. You're watching from Ghana. I really was missing you in this conversation because it's actually touching a lot of things that you believe in, being revolutionary, being taken over or take over. I mean, in the spirit of the new Ibrahim Traore Reparations. You're welcome on this platform. I also want to welcome brother Revolutionary 2 Uhuru, the comrade from the Marion County in Georgia. And Digitaria, I mean, also Alpha D, Alsa, all of you family, I welcome you. I just wanted to really give a quick, shout out to all of you. Sophia, thank you for watching. Leader Lane, thank you also for joining us. And of course, and all of you that are watching us without your names here, your couple of you. And it's a great spirit to be on Pan African Daily TV again. Of course, I know you do miss us. I know you've always missed us until, but you just have to know that we're working on this massive, I call it a massive. It's also a kind of a revolution, like we're saying, when we are coming together and building these progressive platforms just to even remind and keep us conscious on what is going around amongst us in terms of culture. So yes, Pan African Daily TV is live, is back on top, and we're gonna be with you up till we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Omoa Africa Festival in Tübingen, Germany, in just 10 days from now. And immediately after the celebration, we're gonna take a short break of, let's just say, 1 or 2 weeks, and we come back on the platform daily to give you everything that is making news, not just only news, how Africans worldwide on earth and in heaven and under heaven are changing the new narratives and the dynamics of geopolitical landscapes worldwide. Okay, so you gotta embrace that. You gotta embrace that spirit that is coming to us, the spirit of revolution, but not just only revolution, the spirit of unity that is connecting the Africans at home and abroad, like Professor Joomay is telling us tonight. So I really truly welcome you for being here. And this is exactly what is going to keep us a little bit away. Just take a look for those of you that are joining. And if you are here for the first time, I know our subscriber list, Professor Joomay, this is amazing how much this Pan African Daily TV has impacted everyone and still remains that platform that is so useful to the unity and the contact, particularly bridging the diaspora and the continental in the space of, on YouTube. I mean, can you
Absolutely.
imagine that despite we've been away, trying to put the structures behind, celebrate the Omoa upcoming anniversary that is coming up, and really, really being hands on the political situations in Burkina Faso, like the recent conversation also of Ramaphosa in US, what is making news all this time. Of course, we are on this and on touch with that. But one thing we don't want to do right now is a distraction. And this is what you're saying. We don't want nothing that is a distraction. About news, you can get it anywhere. You can get your news sources or whatever. But
That's
what we
right.
do on Pan African Daily is break down the intellectual wisdom that you need from this news. Some of
Absolutely.
them are just noise, some of them are distraction, some of
Absolutely.
them are just ping pong political games and whatever. But what we do on the Pan African Daily TV is not just to flame all those things. And you can get your news sources from everywhere. But when you are here on Pan African Daily TV, you need to be subscribing right now as I'm
Absolutely.
speaking to you.
You see,
Because we are going to give you
absolutely.
exactly the solution from what you see happening as I call it as an entertainment platform. But what is the real thing that you as an African should learn, should understand about what you see?
You see, Dr. Tata, I had a friend who was called Samori Marksman.
Yes.
Samori Marksman was from the Caribbean, but he really was in Liberia for a long time, and he came to New York. He was, running a program called Behind the News in WBAI, and its WBAI was like a part of the Pacifica network, which is a
Hmm.
progressive, progressive broadcasting company, and many of the South African leaders who fought, they come here to the U.S. It's really through the Pacifica that they get their voice, you
Hmm.
know, and you know, uh, behind the news is important for people to understand some of these actions.
Yes.
What exactly explains some of the action? It is important for people to understand what is behind this thing of Donald Trump and the US. A lot of people are looking at it, oh, yeah, yeah, it's no, there is no, but there is a purpose. There is a purpose that many people don't read. The purpose is the destruction of the social capital of South Africa. Just like the social capital of Nigeria has been destroyed by the creation of the conflict between the Igbo, the Yoruba, and the House of Fulani, or the social capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo was destroyed by the creation of Moise Chombe. The social capital of South Africa need to be destroyed for South Africa not to become a viable country. And creating these things, you know, these messages, these false rumors that, the cemetery of thousands of white people being executed in South Africa and all of that stuff.
Oh, give me a
The-
break.
the-
That's a joke.
but it's not a joke. It has a purpose, and that's the purpose that we need to understand us. Is the
Absolutely.
destruction of the social capital of South Africa. That is what the purpose is. To make South Africa a weak country, so weak that it won't have any means to resist neo-colonialism. That's what the purpose is. Because if you want, let me just tell you, development is a product of resources times social capital.
Mm,
Development is a product of resources times social capital.
very correct.
In a multiplication, if you have one other factor close to zero, well, the product is always going to be hovering over zero. The social capital of Nigeria is almost zero. The social capital of the Democratic Republic is almost zero. That's why these countries which were supposed to be viable, could have been viable, compete, in the world stage. They had to be made permeable to imperialism and by the destruction of their social capital. South Africa is today going to that same thing. And we who criticize must look beyond this superficial theatrical thing. That's the theatrical part of it. But the real thing happening is really the message being conveyed. You South African, why South African? You can't be in peace. You have to be in fear. The violence is your thing. You have to resist. Creating havoc in South Africa. That's what the purpose is, and nothing else. And we have to read the language of our oppressors. We have to learn to lead our language, the language of our oppressors. If we don't, then we will be chasing something when, in fact, we're going to be chasing the fact that Donald Trump is saying this when that's not where where we should be running towards. We should be running towards something else, exactly the opposite direction. You know.
Wonderful. It's the same thing that I was just trying to say, that most of it is a distraction, but of course, it's really intentional, and Africans need to read beyond just seeing images and being excited and just talking. Oh, he didn't have to go. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. We need to be wise and intelligent with our fluid intelligence, that the African origins, like you said in the beginning, the Homo sapiens that came into creation actually had this nation of unity even before designing templates or trying to come in some kind of revolutions to do it. I mean, the simple thing that you said here that we want to take out tonight was exactly what you're saying. We have that social capital of Ubuntu-ness. What happened to us, as a matter of fact? What happened to us that we have to run to justify to people that no, it's not this, no, it's this? What is happening? So this is the time where we say, hey, people, hit up the like button, subscribe to Pan-African Daily TV for more latest information and hot news
What is it?
coming
What
from
is
Africans
what is
themselves.
happening, Dr. Tata, is the miseducation of our intellectual elite. You see,
I
everyone
don't
is
really
saying that,
think it's also only miseducation. Some are really educated, but they just don't
no,
want
no,
to
no,
be.
the miseducation, first of all, is
Yes.
first of all, you know, love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not try to be the monkey imitator of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, love yourself first of all. Okay,
That's it. Mm.
love the people, your people. Look at everything else from the perspective of the interests of your people.
But I think you cannot even love your people when you don't love yourself. That's some kind of sickness that we need to cure.
Exactly. There is that part. That's why I'm saying the miseducation. Miseducation. They are educated, but they are educated with the wrong element. See, Steve Biko, when he said the most potent weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mindset or the mind of the oppressed, this
Mm-hmm.
education is an education to format our mind in such a
Mm-hmm.
way that we can't see ourselves being able to exist without our oppressors.
Mm.
You know, that's why our
Yes.
intellectuals need re-education. It's not the African youth that need education because these African intellectuals are giving the wrong education to our youth. We need re-education of the African academics to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
for them to
Mm-hmm.
understand that they were formatted. First of all, like someone who has some sort of mental illness, unless they're conscious that they have a problem, you cannot help them. The African
Sure.
intellectuals are not at that level. Many of them, you know, everything that they do, everything that they do is accommodate to neocolonialism and imperialism, trying to make it into the system, you know. And that defeats the purpose of Addis Ababa 1963, at least from the perspective of Kwame Nkrumah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm interested in more. What was the perspective? Kwame Nkrumah was perspective in 1963, was indeed to get Africa out of the control of the threat of neocolonialism,
Mm.
because as he knew, if we are not united, we will be permeable to imperialism and neocolonialism, you know.
Mm.
So come back to that, let me just put this. Many people, the African Union is indeed has done a lot of things, but the fact of the matter, Dr. Tata, is that it was a failure. It was a defeat, not a failure, a defeat of those who wanted political unity. Kwame Nkrumah,
Mm.
Obote, Modibo Keita, and others. You know,
Mm.
it was a
Mm.
failure. So sometime when I'm celebrating African Liberation Day, yes, I'm celebrating from the perspective that the African Union contributed a lot in the independence of the other African countries, from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. But from the perspective of unionism, I don't celebrate May 25th because it was the defeat of my idol, who is Kwame Nkrumah in that sense.
Mm. Yes. Anyways, I agree. But for now, it is the day. It's the day, and we're starting with that day. And like you said, we take those example and we actually modernize it, because we have a lot of learning to do. Like you said, the miseducation is still deeply, until we're even aware of it, that we're even miseducated. Can we even begin to start to know? Like you don't even know that I don't have love. So how can I even give myself love? That's where it has to start. So I really, really thank you, Professor Joomay, for articulating. I just want to, yeah. Our brother John here is saying, please ask him about Liberia. So just drop a little bit for our Liberian a brother that is here. Anything about Liberia that
Well,
so
Liberia,
like
Liberia was the playground for the preparation of 1963.
okay,
Oh
yes.
yes, all the first meetings, the real meetings for unionism. Unionism. I'm telling about the real meetings for unionism. They happened in Liberia, all of them. You know,
Mm-hmm,
Sanikili was the first one, and then Monrovia and others.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
indeed, the first, the first, you know, indeed, Liberia was on the wrong side of history in terms of the form of union. And if you talk about the African Union, the Organization for African Unity, it's
mm-hmm,
indeed the Liberia president perspective that won the day. That's why we have the Organization of African Union, in a way. You know, it's
mm-hmm,
that short-handed Kwame Nkrumah. That's why we didn't have a United State of Africa, in a way.
mm,
But indeed,
mm,
Liberia played a big role, in that. That's where the people gathered. It wasn't in Ethiopia that they gathered first. Ethiopia was
mm.
the last part of the meeting after they
You see?
met in Liberia a couple of times, and then met in Brazzaville, and then met in Casablanca.
You see, Professor Jumay, you are the man on the spot right now as we speak. And from today, please, all of you that are watching me, I told you there's just a lot in the background that we've not even touched. This one right here, is the game changer, and you need to watch out for Professor Jumai, who is the Secretary General of IPC and PAFM, the new federal movement. I mean, of course, I'm happy. I'm a chair on that board, a chair of the steering committee, for one. So we're gonna be meeting in 2 years from now. Professor Jumai, is that what we're saying in 2026?
2026, October 14 to 18.
Yes,
This
we're
was
gonna be
this will
meeting
be,
in
if you
Dakar.
wanna, let me put it this way, it will be the Garveyite convention repeated in on the African soil. The
Did you hear that?
1920 Garveyite repetition on the African soil,
Oh my
because it's
God.
going to be all Garveyites that are going to be coming there. All
Mhm.
Garveyite. We don't welcome anyone who is not a Garveyite, because Garveyites are for unity of
Mm.
Africans. You know,
Wonderful.
you know.
So I think you get that message real straight, but we're going to get into more details as we continue. Yes, with these conversations on Pan African Daily. And Professor Jumain is still going to be our guest tomorrow as we enter the second day where they actually signed. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about who were the signatories and what kind of speeches did they make. Please watch it out tomorrow. We're going to be live again on Pan African Daily on the second, on the D day before the May 25th declaration. That is the day Professor Jumain is teaching us that they met and they signed. And he has the documents, and we all have the documents. I've been there in Addis Ababa. I saw the documents and most of the signatures, but we will like it. And those of you that are watching us that have maybe a difficulty in understanding the English language, which is not our language, these foreign languages. And you also, we have a huge part of French speaking African countries. Of course, we do take the languages and we make it our own languages of communication right now. So, Professor Germain, even most of the speeches would be translated or a summary in the French language. And also, not just the speeches. Anytime Professor Germain is going to be here, when we do a conversation, he's going to summarize. He's just going to summarize in a 5 to 10 minutes in the French speaking, because we've got a lot of these complaints coming from Pan-African or Unionists that are Africans that are French speaking or Portuguese or that. But like Professor Joomay, you said, download this video, just put the translation button, you're going to get all the communication. I mean, technology and AI and all this stuff are actually helping us now with the translation, isn't it, Prof? Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
Thank you.
it's
Before you round up, I'm so sorry. Before you round up, I really want to encourage our first-time guests that are here. If you haven't subscribed to Pan African Daily, please just do it while we're talking right now before we leave the show. Because what is going to come to Pan African Daily as we are starting again. Now, you just see we went back even to our visuals like we started. So we're going back to our roots. Anything that is not natural in our own soul, it's not Pan-African, it's not Unionist. Am I correct, Professor Jermaine?
absolutely,
Yes. So we're going
because
back to,
natural things are rooted in your culture.
oh yes,
Yeah, when you imitate others' culture, then you become unnatural. You know.
I know.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Professor Jermaine. I'm so sorry
Yeah,
that I
we
interrupted
are
and didn't go
culture. We
through
have
my.
to be. Yesterday I was, just listening to some of James Brown's songs.
Mm,
Which kind of brought me back to some tears as a young man living in a French African country, colonized African country. I danced James Brown like a crazy man, but I never understood what he was saying. I love the rhythm and all of that stuff, you know. But it's now that I'm listening to his song, I'm saying, oh my God, this man, I wish I could understand what he was saying when I was dancing him, then I could explain to my friends what James Brown was saying. Say aloud, I'm black and proud. You're making us work. We're going to work for ourselves. We're going to find means to work for our own self. And that drew me back to sovereignty, you know we a young singer, I mean a singer from the Gambia, Musangom. I went to visit him in Gambia. He told me, Jomai, the big problem with us African is that we went into a competition, we got first place, but we prefer to fight for the prize of the one who arrived last. We got first place in the race, but we are fighting to with the one who came last on over their prize, and let our own prize to somebody else who comes second or third, not even distant tenth. You know. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, I've never heard African, situation described in such a powerful way. We have everything in Africa that you could imagine as resources. The land, the resources, the everything, The history going back to Narmer, the founder of unified Egypt. We have all that, you know. But yet we are begging people to come and help us develop. South Korea calls for a conference, and we all go, our heads of state running, going to South Korea in a conference. I mean, South Korea is not even half of Cameroon, you know. But, we're going to go there, all in buses and then listening to the president of a tiny little country without no resources, trying to get their favor. He came last in the race in terms of what resources they have. He came last, and we came first. But then we're going there to try to get their favor, and that's when I understood Musangong what he told me. What was started in Addis Ababa in 1963, today is time for it to be rectified. Let me repeat that. What Kwame Nkrumah could not do in 1963 in Addis Ababa, help with Milton Obote, Modibo Keita, and Sekou Touré, the African youth of today has the capacity to do it.
mm, mm,
Let's take the African Unionist Grand Forum in 2026 in Bamako, the second convention of Garvey on the continent of Africa, to launch the march for a united African state within 7 years. I
Mm-hmm.
said 7 years. We can do it. We can do it. We have to believe in ourselves. Some people are fully, yeah, the influence that the foreign powers had on our leaders in 1963 in Addis Ababa, they don't have it in them on our youth today.
Yes.
So our youth today is more powerful than those 33 heads of state who came together there. The youth has more interest, 100% of its interest, than the 33 people who come together in Addis Ababa in 1963. The youth's mentality and awakeness is much more advanced in terms of the interest of global Africa than those 33 who met in Addis Ababa in 1963. So let's free our youth. Let's get our youth from Bamako, the land of one of those who were a companion of Kwame Nkrumah, Modibo Keita, to definitely commit ourselves on uniting our state within 7 years. And it's possible. It's possible, not only, but it's necessary, because opportunity doesn't knock twice. Opportunity only knocked one, and opportunity for African unity is knocking now at our door, and very loudly, as Frantz Fanon told us. Every generation must, within the opacity of being, identify their mission, and then, wow, whether you will betray it or whether you will accomplish it. Our generation, just like the generation of the Kwame Nkrumah, their generation, if they had missed independence, we will still be colonies. If our generation missed the opportunity to unite the African state, 50 years from now we will be destroyed countries, like Nyerere said. Without unity there is no future for Africa. And the time is now, the opportunity is now. Let's stop deifying Ibrahim Traore. He is just a human. Let's stop deifying Kwame Nkrumah, Sankara. Let's stop deifying Garvey. Let's 100% appreciate and use what they have brought to the table for us. But for goodness sake, let us get on the ground and dare to complete what they started. They didn't give us everything. We have to find it our own self, like Fanon told us. We have to go to that. Let us stop individualism. Everyone wants to be a leader. A leader of what? Everyone wants to be seen as the liberator of. A liberator of what? No one will liberate Africa. It's Africans who will liberate themselves. Using the opportunity, the context of today, which is a favorable context to end neocolonialism in Africa, through unity. Because that's the only way to end neocolonialism in Africa. No one African country can end neocolonialism in their own. As Kwame Nkrumah told us, balkanization is the tool used for Africans to continue to be weak. Why do we have to continue to be weak? Why do we have to keep hurting ourselves? Why do we have to continue to be lazy about freeing ourselves? It's like we don't know the value. We don't know, like Harriet Tubman, the value of liberty, of sovereignty. We don't appreciate it. And then we go thinking we are satisfied. Everyone wants to quote Garvey, quote Kwame Nkrumah, quote this and quote that. Stop being lazy intellectuals. Revisit what Kwame Nkrumah wrote and see how it could be practically put on today in practice. Go read Garvey and see how we could enhance him. Garvey was not writing a Bible. Kwame Nkrumah wasn't writing a Bible. Cheikh Anta Diop wasn't writing a Bible. They were just putting their perspective on what they think we should do at that time. That time is gone. Today is a different time. That time was not a time of opportunity. The context was not allowing it at that time. The context allows it now. So let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
Hmm.
use this African Liberation Day to commit ourselves, all our resources, to working for African Union. Anybody who's talking about Pan-African or African or Garvey without really committing themselves to this is just a poor teaser of themselves. Stop chanting Garvey, act Garvey. Stop chanting Kwame Nkrumah, act Kwame Nkrumah. Stop chanting Thomas Sankara, act Thomas Sankara. Stop chanting Lumumba, act Lumumba, act them. Thank you, my sister.
Hey, Professor, we do want to thank you, thanking you. This is so inspiring. This is powerful. I don't remember the last time that Pan-African Daily TV family actually felt this power again. Of course, we were left on our own to explore the different informations that are out there. But when it comes to doing, when it comes to walking the talk, and you need a place to tap that oil and that energy, make sure you're subscribed to Pan African Daily and make it a duty
Absolutely.
to be here, because
Absolutely.
we're not in for content creators. We are not
Absolutely.
in to celebrate or to
Absolutely.
just wave flags. We are not in running after people, or I want to be there, or go and take selfies. No,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
we are in the background doing the job of
Going to take a
unity.
selfie with the Ibrahim Traore is selfishness.
Yes.
That's egotism. You want to promote yourself. I take a picture with him. What does it mean? I spent 2 years with Sankara. I've never taken a picture with him. I avoided even taking pictures, you know, because I don't want people to feel like, yes, I have more than they do, you know.
We're going to be talking about this live on Pan African Daily
Before I
TV.
end, my Dr. Susan, I really want to thank you. And I want to just let people who are listening, Dr. Tata isn't doing this easily. It's through a lot of sacrifice that she's going through and doing this. You know, it's good to come and listen to her show, but it's good also to think, how is she doing it? What am I doing to make it possible for her to do it? She's giving her time, you know, mind power, you know, all of that stuff. What are we doing to help her? That's the question I'm asking, Elroy, all of you. You are a star in a in a dark night, you know, a very bright star in a dark night, you know, and we need you. We need to show you more support, you know, and uh, I look forward to really continuing to work with you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my frustration with people who like to take selfie with Ibrahim Traore or have a picture, their picture with something nonsense there. And want to congratulate for people who are doing the hard work in the background, you know, and are not looking for being what do you call it, looked at as special people or anything like that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Professor. And thank you for every one of you that have joined. I mean, of course, we said we were just doing a warm up show to get into the real conversations, but of course, we've just killed our time as usual. And Pan African Daily is not a short, it's not about 5 minutes news and just pick it, put. We are in the Kemet School, the University of African Union, the University of Unionism, the University of the Garveys, and all of you that are watching us. What do you have to bring on the table? My sister Cheryl said, everyone came with a purpose and a gift. Let's do it. Bring what you have to contribute. It's not only the professors, it's not only us that are sitting here, it is you that are even the biggest part of Pan African Daily, because without you, we wouldn't be having these conversations and these lectures. So thank you so much, Professor. Of course, I'm so happy for being with you. Of course, people look at you, it's like, and somebody was telling me, oh, please, Susan, just shut up, let the elders speak. They don't even know that the difference in age between me and you is just like Senegal and Cameroon.
Yes, you know,
Which is
I am 69, And I'm happy to be 69.
Yeah, so I mean, anyway, it's just not anything against us, but I'm just saying, of course, that's the respect that we have for us here. All of us, we respect each other on this platform. Nobody's gonna talk back or talk white to any other person because this is our platform from us by us, bringing solutions to our own challenges, but typical solutions. The truth, like Professor is saying, of what use should we run all of us to Burkina Faso, make delegations, make selfies, push it everywhere? So I was there. No, it's just taking, being so disrespectful to the work of these
That money,
giants,
that money
champions,
that you
and
pay to
wanting.
go, that money you pay to go to Burkina Faso, send it to Dr. Susan Tata.
I like that. Yes,
It
that
will
now.
do
That,
much more to our revolution than you going and taking a selfie there, say for selfish reason. It is for selfish reason because there is no reason for you to go there. Selfish, pure selfish reason. That's not. That's
or you just do the
anti-revolutionary.
revolution. Or
You
you
know.
just do the revolution. And this is what we do, talk on Pan African Daily. We speak truth to ourselves. We speak truth about us in the purpose of love. Not we don't probably those go and they show him that support to is okay, but we just like let's be intentional. Let's make so much good noise in the background and let the
Yeah.
work be seen in public.
Absolutely.
So I want to
Absolutely.
thank all of you. And you also know that we're coming up with so many, many good brands on Pan African Daily TV. Professor Joomay, did I show you Mama Harriet Tubman's t-shirt from
No,
MEYI?
no, I didn't.
Oh, not yet. Oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah, let's see it.
Anyway, I'm trying to, I think my storage is full right here. Even Ibrahim Traore's t-shirt, which I posted on Pan African
I
Daily
saw that one.
Facebook, and everybody was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna get mine. But tonight and today, we even first, before we launch that platform of the solutions from Pan African Daily TV, which is called MEYI. MEYI is gonna be solutions that we all have come together. These are health benefit natural energies that actually boost us to stay in touch with ourselves. So we're going back to our roots, like we said. And the face of MEYI is Harriet Tubman.
Wow, that's
And that's why
wonderful. I
when you
would.
mention her name without even, and that vision, she came actually to me like any other ancestors that visit me for the purpose. And that is the solution that is going to be from our own part to stay healthy, to stay together, and
Absolutely.
never ever be against each other. So we're
Absolutely.
looking forward for that brand and those products coming up shortly. So thank you so much for everyone that has been here. It's been a nice time. Professor, we see us tomorrow and
Okay.
exactly on the speeches and the
Okay.
visionaries. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes. Yes. We will have a few switches to go over, in terms of the content, you know, from people that are popular that everyone knows, like the Nyerere speech, like the others, speech, um, to see what mindset. Well, let's try to capture the mindset of those who were speaking. One thing that you could notice, we will notice in this speech, every single one of them knew unity is necessary.
Mm.
Every single one of them went against the idea of unity. But all of them, many of them, the majority of them say unity, but. And this is what made Kwame Nkrumah say that none of them dare to say I'm against what you're saying. But they bring me these buts and ifs. So you'll see that in the speeches that they made, you know.
So thank you. Thank you. We're 2 minutes away. Join us tomorrow live on Pan African Daily. And if you just want to know the mind of the people that brought this whole concept together and the visionary, make sure you make a date with us tomorrow. Same time, Professor Joomay. Are you okay?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you for being here. And thank you for everyone. Thank you for being our community and our family tonight. We bless you with Ubuntu, the spirit of love and unity from African ancestors to the generations, even after we transit. So we see
Thank,
us tomorrow. And
thank you
good night.
for, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being our honorable teacher, and guest. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And good night to everyone. We see us tomorrow.
From Cameroon to the world, yeah, we are gathered as one people, spreading the love for motherland, yeah. As we hail Mama Africa, we left home to feed home. We don't suffer, now we celebrating. We left home to feed home. We celebrating 25th anniversary, no. Africa, Africa.